Hey, greetings. Michael Didier here. Thank you for joining me. We've got a fun day. Lots of neat things to talk about. Yehovah is going to bless this lesson. Father, we need your help. Let's do a quick review of what we did last week. We covered 45, 46 last week, and just a pinch of Yasher. Didn't cover a whole lot. Hopefully we'll get a little bit more covered this week. I did want to make it through the reunion between Joseph and Jacob last week, and that's where we left off in Yasher. Here is where we began last week with Joseph saying to his brothers, "I'm Joseph. Does my dad still live? My father still live?" I think it's so neat that the very first thing he wanted to ask once he identified himself was about his dad. I think that says a lot about this young man. Young man, 39 years old, I guess. Then he had to reassure his brothers that Elohim sent him before them. He says, "But now do not therefore be grieved or angry with yourselves because you sold me here, for Elohim sent me before you to preserve life." How beautiful. And now, it was not you who sent me, but the Elohim, and he has made me a father to Pharaoh. Look at that, a father to Pharaoh. He's leading Pharaoh in the way that he should go. He's become the Lord of all his house and the ruler throughout the land of Egypt. You know, we talked about the seed of Jacob all the time in Yasher. But every place in Torah where it talks about the seed of Jacob, it calls him the seed of Israel. I think that's interesting that it makes this distinction. It was Pharaoh who actually told Joseph to get some carts together and send them down to bring Joseph's family down from Egypt. It says then Israel's seed did so, and Joseph gave them carts according to the command of Pharaoh, and he gave them provisions for the journey. Well, remember when the last thing that Joseph said to his brothers was, "Be careful how you present the news to dad." Torah just says Joseph is alive and he's governor of all the land of Egypt. But they were much more careful in presenting this news to a 130-year-old man than Torah would have us to understand. It says, "And Jacob's heart stood still because he did not believe them." Well, look at the last verse. "Then Israel said, 'It is enough. I'm full. Here's all these presents being unpacked,' but he says, 'It is enough. Joseph, my son, is alive. I will go down and see him before I die.'" I think he had full intentions of going back up after he had gone down to see Joseph. But Yehovah had other plans, didn't he? And that's what 46 is all about. It's about us going down to Egypt. He has a big goodbye party, offers slaughters to Elohim of his father Isaac in Beersheba. It was there that Yehovah said in a night vision, "You're not coming back. You're going to stay in Egypt." He says, "I will make a plenteous nation for you there." They said, "Great nation." Remember, we were talking about Goyim, Gadal. Plenteous people is what he's going to make for them there. Great nation. Doesn't that make it seem like a righteous nation, or that's how it seems to me. And I had to kind of look at this again and realize, no, we're not talking about great. We're talking about a numerous people. So it says Jacob's arose from Beersheba, and Israel's seed carried their father, their little ones, and their wives in carts, which Pharaoh had sent to carry them. You know what? Beyond the obvious here, look at Israel's seed is not the father, is not their father. He's the father of Israel, but he's not Israel's seed because he's Israel, isn't he? But Israel's seed's not the little ones. Israel's seed's not the women. I said wives there, but we're talking again about what? We're talking about the women. Let's do it right. There it goes. All right. We're talking about their women. They're little ones, they're tough, and they're nashim. They put in the carts. Well, we spent a lot of time last week talking about who married whom and the sons that they had. We counted them. We saw that this very first one had 33. This was the seed of Leah. But when we counted them, there was only 32. And interestingly enough, when we added up all the amounts, when we did the 32 and the 14 or the 16 and the 14 and the, what is the last one? 7, they added up to the 70. But it didn't add up any other way. Look at this. Here, I think I've got it here. Here, it was 32, not 33. We counted it out. We thought, well, maybe Jochebed had been left out. Apparently, she wasn't left out. I always thought she was left out. But when we add up the 32 plus the 16 plus the 11, I took out 3 because they're getting moved down here. They're already in Egypt. It was 11 and then 7 ended up being 66. But if we went with their count, 33 plus 60 plus 16 plus 11 plus 7, we went into with 67. Isn't it interesting, too, that we're talking about those that went down to Egypt, but they didn't count their wives. It says, besides Jacob's sons' wives. How about, we know that Rachel and Leah were gone. Were Bilhah and Zilpah also, had they perished or died before this? Did they go down with Jacob? I don't know. Were they younger than Rachel and Leah? Of course, I think Rachel and Leah died really quite early. Remember, Rachel died at 45 and Leah died at 51. What did we say? Jacob was 55 years older than Rachel and Leah. Yet he outlived him by a huge amount. Well, they did go down and they met their dad. Here's the greeting. So Joseph made ready his chariots and went to Goshen to meet his father, and he presented himself to him and fell on his neck and wept on his neck a good while. That's it. That's it. That's the greeting. Made ready his chariot, went down to Goshen, found his dad. What does that leave in your mind? You remember what we saw in Yasher? So much more. Let's go to Yasher. We're going to just cover that quickly. Here it is. This is what we saw last week. We covered the first, I don't know, maybe the first 18 verses, I think it was. First, it came to pass after this that Jacob said, I will go down and see my son in Egypt. and I will come back to the land of Canaan. This is what we were just talking about. He fully expected to come back. But in the dream that he has, Yehovah says, nope, you're going to stay in Egypt. But isn't it interesting? Look in verse 3. He wanted to see if, well, here, let me read it. And Jacob said within himself, I will go and see my son, whether the fear of his Elohim is yet in his heart amidst the inhabitants of Egypt. Ooh, isn't that neat? That is the thing that Jacob was most concerned about for his son. Is the fear of Elohim yet in his heart? Is the fear of Elohim yet in our heart? That is what's going to inspire us to live differently than the rest of the world. Yehovah told him right away, fear not about Joseph, for he still retaineth the integrity to serve me, as will seem good in thy sight. And Jacob rejoiced exceedingly concerning his son. Well, he went down. Joseph made a mandate. Look what it says. And Joseph's mandate was proclaimed in Egypt, saying, all that do not go to meet Jacob shall die. Wow. Can you imagine living in a place where a man can say, all who will not go down and meet the king of wherever shall die? Of course, we're talking about a much smaller place, Egypt, I suppose. But boy, that's pretty amazing. Well, Pharaoh gave Joseph his crown to put on his head to go meet his dad. And as he came to meet his dad with all these people of the land, remember, there was thousands of people there. Jacob got off of his chariot and started walking towards his father. When he got off his chariot, everybody else got off their chariot, and they started walking towards Jacob. And Jacob, seeing this man dressed, look what he says. Who is that man? He's talking to Judah. Who is that man who I see in the camp of Egypt dressed in kingly robes, with a very red garment upon him, a royal crown upon his head, who has alighted from his chariot and is coming towards us? Judah says, he is thy son, Joseph, the king. Look what it says. Here's Joseph, the king, number 2 in Egypt, who's really the father of Pharaoh, he said, the Lord of his house and the Lord of the whole land. It says, Joseph came nigh unto his father, and he bowed to his father. And all the men of the camp bowed to the ground with him before Jacob. Here is all Egypt bowing before Jacob. What was the verse that we had in Torah? Here it is. And Joseph made ready his chariot and went up to Goshen to meet his father, and presented himself to him, and fell on his neck and wept on his neck a good while. That's it. Look at how much more we get to see in Yasher. Isn't it beautiful? And Jacob ran and hastened to his son Joseph, and fell on his neck and kissed him. And they wept, and Joseph also embraced his father and kissed him. And they wept, and all the people of Egypt wept with them. It says the sons, the seed of Jacob, their women, their children, their servants, and all the household of Jacob wept exceedingly with Joseph. Well, this is where we left off last week. He was going to give them the best part of Egypt, the land of Goshen. And this is where we're going to pick it up this week. And Joseph went and told Pharaoh and said, my father, and my brothers, their flocks and their herds, and all they possess have come from the land of Canaan. And indeed, they are in the land of Goshen. And he took 5 men from among his brothers and presented them to Pharaoh. 5 men from among his brothers. We're going to see who those 5 men are. Then Pharaoh said to his brothers, "What is your occupation?" Remember, they had been primed. We saw that last week. When he asked, "Tell him you're shepherds." And they said to Pharaoh, "Your servants are shepherds, both we and also our fathers. We come from a line of shepherds." What is the name of the man who works in the field in the Song of Songs?
Husbandman.
Husbandmen. Thank you, Raya. Yeah, the husbandmen. These men are husbandmen. Husbandmen. They're taking care of crops. They're taking care of sheep and goats. I think that's the way we were meant to live. And they said to Pharaoh, "We have come to dwell in the land because your servants have no pasture for their flocks. For the famine is severe in the land of Canaan. Now therefore, please let your servants dwell in the land of Goshen." Then Pharaoh spoke to Joseph, saying, "Your father and your brothers have come to you. The land of Egypt is before you. Have your father and your brothers dwell in the best of the land. Let them dwell in the land of Goshen. And if you have any competent men among you, then make them chief herdsmen over my livestock." Is he inviting the brothers to possibly work for him? Or maybe their servants to possibly work for them? Then Joseph brought in his father Jacob. Okay, he brought in, it said 5 men. Then Joseph brought in his father Jacob and set him before Pharaoh. And Jacob blessed Pharaoh. You know, I was really impressed with this at first. Jacob blessed Pharaoh. What'd he say? What'd he do if he blessed Pharaoh? I had to look at this word this week. Here's what I found. This is something that has to do, it says, he knelt. He came into Pharaoh's presence when he left. He knelt. Look, the verb is a meaning to bless. Kneel, salute, greet. Here is ancient Hebrew lexicon of the Bible. It says, kneel. That's the action, kneel. Abstractly, it can mean bless. But this is being used as a verb. I think that Jacob bowed before Pharaoh, is what it's saying. If he blessed him, what did he bless him with? Let's find out. Let's listen to the conversation, and let's see what happens when he comes in. This is when he came in. When he leaves, let's see what happens. It says, and Jacob blessed Pharaoh. I would say Jacob knelt before Pharaoh, bowed before Pharaoh. Pharaoh said to Jacob, "How old are you?" That's the next question that we have. How old are you? Ooh, I think this is really neat. Look what it says. The last time Joseph saw his father, Jacob, would have already been around 108 years old. Talking about how old is he right now? We're going to find out he's 130 years old right now. Jacob did not see Joseph for at least 22 years. So 108 plus the 22 is going to be the 130 that he's going to be here in this next chapter. I guess I wanted to see how this all fit together to understand where all this time period has been. So from 17 to 39 is the 22 years that he's been in Egypt. But look at this. Here's Jacob's answer. Jacob says, "The days of the years of my pilgrimage, my pilgrimage are 130 years. Few and evil have been the days of the years of my life, and they have not attained to the days of the years of the life of my fathers in the days of their pilgrimage. Wow, look at the days of the years of the life of Shem. He lived 600 years. Jacob right now is 130. He's going to live to be 147. He's going to be in Egypt for another 17 years, teaching his sons and his sons' sons the ways of Yehovah and to know Yehovah. What a privilege! Shem died when Jacob was 50 years old. Eber died at 464 when Jacob was 79 years old. And Isaac, his father, who lived to be 180 years, died when he was 120 years old. Remember, that was just before just before Joseph took the throne. He was still in jail. But it was just before he took the throne and became number 2 in Egypt. It says, and Joseph... No, here it is. This is him leaving right now. So Jacob blessed Pharaoh and went out before Pharaoh. So he blessed him, knelt before him when he came in, and he knelt before him when he came out. I don't think there was a blessing there. I think it was honoring Pharaoh. Same word. Barak. Barak is used as blessed many times, but not when we're talking about. It says he knelt, and he knelt in this case. Joseph situated his father and his brothers and gave them a possession in the land of Egypt, in the best of the land, in the land of Ramses, as Pharaoh had commanded. The land of Ramses is the land of Goshen. You know, I didn't open my map here, but let me open it real quick. Open Egypt. There it is. This is on the Delta. Here's Ramses. Let me zoom back out a little bit. And you can kind of see, this area right here. And this is a very, very fertile spot that he was given, the land of Ramses. Then Joseph provided his father, his brothers, and all his father's household with bread according to the number in, it says, their families. The word there is actually the families, the taf, ha-taf, the families. I don't think we're talking about children. I think we're talking about the families. So rather than make it italicized in grade, the word is there. It's the, according to the number of the families. Now there was no bread in all the land, for the famine was very severe, so that the land of Egypt and the land of Canaan languished because of the famine. And Joseph gathered all the money that was found in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan. Look at this, he's gathering up all the money for the grain which they bought, and Joseph brought the money to Pharaoh's house. We're going to see by the time this famine is over that Egypt is going to be extremely wealthy. So when the money failed in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan, all the Egyptians came to Joseph and said, "Give us bread, for why should we die in your presence? For the money has failed. We have no more money." And Joseph said, "Give your livestock, and I will give you bread for your livestock if the money is gone." Not giving food stamps This is not something that you're going to get that you didn't earn. This is something that you're going to do. How interesting. Then Joseph said, give your livestock, and I will give you bread for your livestock if the money is gone. So they brought their livestock to Joseph. And Joseph gave them bread in exchange for horses, the flocks, the cattle of herds, and for the donkeys. Thus he fed them with bread in exchange for all their livestock that year. When the year had ended, they came to him the next year and said to him, we will not hide from Adonai that our money is gone. Adonai, my master, also has our herds of livestock. There's nothing left in the sight of Adonai but our bodies and our lands. Why should we die before your eyes, both we and our lands? Buy our land for bread, and we and our land will be servants to Pharaoh. Give us seed, that we may live and not die, that the land may not be desolate. You know, if this had happened in Yehovah's kingdom at the year of Jubilee, they would have got their land back. But it doesn't happen this way in Nimrod's kingdom. These Nimrodian kingdoms. The land has become theirs. This is why we pay taxes. For land that we buy land, we buy a house, we buy property. But we still have to pay taxes on the land. Why? Because it's not our land. We just think it's our land. It's treated as our land. But if it's our land, how come we're paying taxes on it? This is what's happening to us in these days. The world has claimed this land as theirs. The kingdoms of the United States has claimed this land as theirs. Each state does exactly the same thing. Remember, they're corporate states as well. Didn't used to be like this. Used to be when we had land, we didn't have to pay taxes on that land. Then Joseph bought all the land of Egypt. For every man of the Egyptians sold his field because the famine was severe upon them. So the land became Pharaoh's. Look, it says every man sold his land, his field. Men owned the fields, not the ladies. And as for the people, he moved them into the cities, from one end of the border of Egypt to the other end. Joseph is moving people into the cities. Only the land of the priests he did not buy, for the priests had rations allotted to them by Pharaoh. And they ate their rations which Pharaoh gave them, therefore they did not sell their lands. And Joseph said to the people, indeed, I have bought you and your land this day for Pharaoh. Look, here is seed for you, and you shall sow the land. And it shall come to pass in the harvest that you shall give 1/5, that's 20%, to Pharaoh. 4/5 shall be for your own as seed for the field and for your food, for those of your household, and as food for your little ones. So they said, you have saved our lives. Let us find favor in the sight of Adonai, and we will be Pharaoh's servants. And Joseph made it a law over the land of Egypt to this day that Pharaoh should have 1/5, except for the land of the priests, which did not become Pharaoh's. 1/5 sounds pretty good. Or 1/5, 20%. How much are we getting right now? 30%, 40%, 50%? certainly a lot more than it was ever intended. So Israel dwelt in the land of Egypt, in the country of Goshen, and they had possessions there and grew and multiplied exceedingly. They multiplied exceedingly. That's what Yehovah said that they would do. Become a great nation, a numerous people. And Jacob lived in the land of Egypt 17 years. So the length of Jacob's life was 147 years. He's coming to the end of his life. 17 years have just passed by, apparently. Look what it says. The time drew near that Joseph must die. He called his son Joseph and said to him, "Now, if I have found favor in your sight, please put your hand under my thigh." My thigh. What's he talking about? "And deal kindly and truly with me. Please do not bury me in Egypt." He's asking his son for an oath. But this is not your average oath. "Please put your hand under my thigh." What's he putting his hand under? Look at the word here. The word here is yarak. Yarak. Here, let me see if I can move this there. Now you can see it. From an unused root, meaning soft, the thigh, from its fleshly softness. By euphemism, the generative parts. We're talking about his testicles. The seed, here we use the same word. I wonder if I can get to this. If I go here, I'm looking for in chapter 46. This is really, eSword is really a useful tool. Here is the dictionaries. Right here is the King James Concordance. I can see in this where it is used in 46. Here it is. All the persons who went with Jacob to Egypt, who came from his body. There it is right there. That's the Yarak. Who came from his body. Talking about the generative parts. We saw this same word here in 24 of Genesis. Abraham was sending Eliezer to find a bride for Isaac. So the servant put his hand under the thigh of Abraham, his master, and swore to him concerning this matter. He used it here in 24:2 also. So Abraham said to his oldest servant in the house, who ruled over all that he had, "Please put your hand under my thigh." Wow, not the kind of thing that we do. But this is what's going on in this chapter. This is an oath that he is taking. This is Joseph is taking, that he will make sure that his father is going to be buried in the field of, what was it? The field of Machpelah. Machpelah. That's what we're talking about. So he's making an oath. "Put your hand under my thigh. But let me lie with my fathers. You shall carry me out of Egypt. Bury me in the burial place." And he said, "I will do as you have said." I'm sure that he's making an oath in the name of Yehovah. This is what Yehovah promised him. Remember, what did we just say? Remember, he was thinking he was going to go down to Egypt and come back. But Yehovah told him, let me go back here. Well, I guess he doesn't say that he's going to come back. He says, I will go down with you to Egypt, and I will also surely bring you, I will surely bring you up again. Is he talking about bringing Jacob up again? Or is he talking about bringing the whole house of Israel up again? I guess that would be something that we would consider. But I think he may be talking about his dad, bringing him back up again. And Joseph will put his hand on your eyes. Is it possible that Jacob wants to fulfill the words of Yehovah, that Yehovah would bring him back up again? I think it's possible that's exactly what's going on. He wants to fulfill that word. He wants to be buried with Abraham, with Sarah, with Isaac and Rebekah. Remember, Leah's buried here also. Rachel was buried in Bethlehem, or near Bethlehem. He says, swear to me, and he swore to him. So Israel bowed himself on the head of his bed. Well, let's go back then to Yasher. We get to read a little bit more of Yasher before we have to come back. Forgive me, Father. Till we get to come back to Torah on Genesis 48. It says here, and Joseph said unto his father and unto his brethren, I will go up and tell Pharaoh, saying, my brethren and my father's household and all belonging to them have come unto me. And behold, they are all in the land of Goshen. And Joseph did so and took his brethren. Who's he going to take? It said 5 guys, didn't it? He's going to take Reuben, Issachar, Zebulun, and Benjamin. And he placed them before Pharaoh. 3 of Leah's sons and 1 of Rachel's sons, his brother, placed him before Pharaoh. Where's the 5th? I can only assume that the 5th is going to be Jacob himself. Here's what it said. And he took 5 men from among his brothers and presented them to Pharaoh. I think Jacob was the 5th man, as can only be. And Joseph spoke unto Pharaoh, saying, my brethren and my father's household and all belonging to them, together with their flocks and cattle, have come unto me from the land of Canaan to sojourn in Egypt, for the famine was severe upon them. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, place thy father and brethren in the best part of the land. Withhold not from them all that is good, and cause them to eat the fat of the land. The fat of the land is the very best that the land has to offer, is what that word fat means. And look what it says. And Joseph answered, saying, behold, I have stationed them in the land of Goshen, for they are shepherds. Therefore let them remain in Goshen to feed their flocks apart from the Egyptians. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, do with thy brethren all that they shall say unto thee. And Jacob's seed bowed down to Pharaoh. Jacob's seed, remember we're talking about Israel's seed, bowed down to Pharaoh, and they went forth from him in peace. They bowed down to Pharaoh, and they went forth from him in peace. Barak, remember that was the word bowed down that we were talking about, blessed, it got translated. And Joseph afterwards brought his father before Pharaoh. And Jacob came and bowed down to Pharaoh. Look what it says. And Jacob blessed Pharaoh. Well, what's going on? Jacob bowed down to Pharaoh, and Jacob blessed Pharaoh. And he went out. Look at, and he went out. And Jacob and all his sons and all his household dwelt in the land of Goshen. He did it when he came. He did it when he left. I don't think there was a blessing. I think he came in, bowed to Pharaoh, and as he left, he bowed to Pharaoh. It says, and then he went out. Got to kind of look at it differently. It doesn't appear to me that he blessed him. If he blessed him, we're going to see he blesses the boys. We're going to see what he does. There's going to be a blessing. Let's find out. In the second year, that is the 130th year of the life of Jacob, Joseph maintains his father and his brethren and all his father's household with the bread according to their little ones. This is the second year. This is the year that they came. And all the days of the famine, they lacked nothing. And Joseph gave unto them the best part of the whole land, the best of Egypt. Remember, we were talking about the fat of the land. This is what we're talking about, the best part of the whole land. The best of Egypt had they all the days of Joseph. And Joseph also gave unto them and unto the whole of his father's household clothes, garments, year by year. And Jacob's seed remained securely in Egypt all the days of their brother. He's not going to be around forever. We're going to lose him in a few more chapters. And Jacob always ate at Joseph's table. Look at that. Did he eat there for 17 years? Jacob always ate at Joseph's table. Jacob and his sons did not leave Joseph's table day or night, besides what Jacob's sons consumed in their houses. And all Egypt ate bread during the days of the famine from the house of Joseph. Maybe that's what they mean, eating at Joseph's table. Is it possible that it's not literally his table, but it's his food? Look what it says. And all Egypt ate bread during the days of the famine from the house of Joseph. And all the Egyptians sold all belonging to them on account of the famine. And Joseph purchased the land and the fields of Egypt for bread on the account of Pharaoh. And Joseph supplied all Egypt with bread all the days of the famine. And Joseph collected all the silver and gold that came unto him for corn which they bought throughout the land. And he accumulated much gold and silver, besides an immense quantity of onyx stones, bdellium, and valuable garments, which they brought unto Joseph from every part of the land when their money was spent. They're doing everything they can. And Joseph took all the silver and the gold that came into his hand, about 72 talents of gold and silver, and also onyx stones and bdellium in great abundance. And Joseph went and concealed them in 4 parts. Concealed them in 4 parts. And he concealed 1 part in the wilderness near the Red Sea, and 1 part near the river Parath, and a 3rd and 4th part he concealed in the desert opposite the wilderness of Persia and Media. And he took part of the gold and silver that was left and gave it into all his brothers, and unto all his father's household, and unto all the women of his father's household. Isn't that interesting? The women of his father's household. And the rest he brought to the house of Pharaoh, about 20 talents of gold and silver. And Joseph gave all the gold and silver that was left unto Pharaoh, and Pharaoh placed it in his treasury. And the days of the famine ceased. 7 years have gone by after that in the land, and they sowed and reaped in the whole land. And they obtained their usual quantity year by year, and they lacked nothing. And Joseph dwelt securely in Egypt, and the whole land was under his advice. And his father and all his brethren dwelt in the land of Goshen and took possession of it. Look what it says. And Joseph was very aged. Joseph was very aged, advanced in years, and his two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, remained constantly in the house of Jacob, together with the sons of Jacob's seed, their brethren, to learn the ways of Yehovah and his law. You know what? What's going on here? Why does it say Joseph? And Joseph was very aged. This is not Joseph. This is Jacob. The writer must mean Jacob, or the translators changed it to Joseph because it talks about his two sons. But we got to understand there's another picture going on here. And his two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh. So because it says that, we assume it's got to be Joseph. But remember that Jacob took Manasseh and Ephraim as his own sons. We're going to see that very shortly. It's going to be someplace else. Maybe we're going to see that in the very next chapter of Torah that we're going to go through. So let's go back down to where we were just at. Very aged. How old is Joseph right now? At best. If Jacob is 147, Joseph is between 44 and 56 years old. No. Jacob dies at 147. So Joseph can only be between 44. Remember, the famine is over. So he was 39, 5 more years, makes it 44. And 56, when he's 56, Joseph is going to die at 147. So he's got to be between 44 and 56 right now. That's certainly not very aged. There's something more for us to learn. I think it's so cool that he's teaching Jacob's son's seed to learn the ways of Yehovah and his law, his Torah. The sons are always learning from the eldest member of the clan. And Jacob and his sons dwelt in the land of Egypt, in the land of Goshen, and they took possession in it, and they were fruitful and multiplied. Here is Jacob teaching his sons' seed the ways of Yehovah and his laws. Oh, so beautiful. Well, now we get to turn to 48. Oh, it says 48 and 49. My. All right, let's go there. Now it came to pass after these things that Joseph was told, "Indeed, your father is sick." And he took with him his two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. Manasseh and Ephraim. Do you remember Manasseh? Manasseh was the son who, when Joseph's guard went to put Simeon in jail, the first time that they came, remember all the brothers were there, and he was going to take Simeon and put him in jail and set the other brothers free. It was Manasseh, 5-year-old Manasseh, maybe even 4-year-old Manasseh, who subdued Simeon. Simeon, one of the two guys that took out the whole city of Shechem. This 5-year-old took out Simeon. And remember, he said, this can not be said that this is a youth of Egypt, for this is indeed somebody from my father's house. Then it was Manasseh who, when Judah took the rock, threw it up with one hand, caught it in the other hand, set it down on the ground, sat on it, and turned it to ash or dust, pulverized it. Manasseh it was who did the same thing. Remember when Judah, 2 weeks ago, was ready to tear down Egypt? He was so wroth. It was Joseph who asked Manasseh to put his hand on Joseph's shoulder. And Joseph was calmed as soon as that happened. Again, he said, let this not say it was an Egyptian who did this, but this was certainly a youth from my father's house. Always Manasseh. Where's Ephraim at all these times? I saw one place where maybe Ephraim was. Remember when we gave, it said the 5 gifts to Benjamin while they were eating? Joseph gave a gift. Manasseh gave a gift. Ephraim gave a gift. Their mother gave a gift. Asenath. Don't know where the third gift or the last gift came from. That's only 4. But there's Ephraim. He's around. Same age as his brother. But it seems like his brother is more in the forefront, doesn't it? Well, watch what happens in this chapter. Oh, by the way, the boys are 22 years old at this point. 22 years plus. Been 17 years. They were 5. Now 17 years later, they're 22. And Jacob was told, look, your son Joseph is coming to you. And Israel strengthened himself and sat up in his bed. Isn't that interesting? Jacob was told, but it was Israel who strengthened himself and sat up in the bed. Watch as we go through this chapter. It's going to go back and forth between Jacob and Israel. I put Jacob tends to refer to the earthly man, while Israel refers to the spiritual man. The earthly man, Jacob, is on his deathbed in Egypt. Yet it is Israel, the spiritual man, who strengthens himself for the purpose of blessing his sons. This is going to be a blessing. Then Jacob said to Joseph, El Shaddai appeared to me in Luz, the land of Canaan, and blessed me. This is where Israel got his name. Just talking about Israel strengthened himself. Now he's talking about the Elohim who provides, the strong authority who provides, El Shaddai. Remember that Shad has to do with breasts that dangle, provision from Yehovah. Watch for the provision from Yehovah. Appeared to him in Luz in the land of Canaan, and said to me, behold, I will make you fruitful and multiply you. I will make thee fruitful and multiply thee. Remember, he had nothing. No, I take it back. When he was, well, I guess it depends on whether he was the first time or the second time. The first time he came with nothing. The second time he had all kinds of things. And said unto him, behold, I will make you fruitful and multiply you, and I will make you a multitude of people, and give this land to your seed, your descendants. An assemblage of Amim, it talks about, and a multitude of people, an assemblage of peoples. To thy seed. There it is. There's the two, lamed. There's the bab, or the kaf, that says thy. And then the word seed is zara. To thy seed after you is an everlasting possession. But now look what he says. This is why I said in the last chapter of Yasher about the two sons. Whose sons are we talking about? Listen what he says. And now your two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh. Remember, Manasseh is the eldest. Ephraim and Manasseh, who were born to you in the land of Egypt before I came to you in Egypt, are mine, as Reuben and Simeon. They, Ephraim and Manasseh, shall be mine. What were we looking at here just now? Look what it said. It talked about, and Joseph was very old, and his two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh. No, these are Jacob's two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh. Remain constantly in the house of Jacob. I want you to see this. It helps clarify what's going on. They are mine. Your offspring, whom you begat after them, shall be yours. They will be called by the name of their brothers in their inheritance. They're going to be treated like my sons. In a sense, they're replacing Joseph for Jacob's sons. Watch how this works out. It's very interesting. It's more clear in Yasher, but we're going to see it and understand it today. They will be called by the name of their brothers in their inheritance. Joseph had other children. Did he have other children? I don't know. Your offspring whom you begat after them shall be yours. They will be called by the name of their brothers in their inheritance. It also appears that Joseph is getting the double portion birthright. Well, you know what? We saw that eons ago in Yasher, that Joseph was going to get the double portion birthright. Remember, the one who gets the birthright gets twice what all the other brothers get. Joseph's getting it, but he's getting it one for Manasseh and one for Ephraim. Let's continue. Verse 7. As for me, when I came from Padan, Rachel died beside me in the land of Canaan on the way when there was but a little distance to Ephrath. And I buried her there on the way to Ephrath, that is Bethlehem. Yeah, Yasher 36 says that Rachel was 45 and Jacob was 100 when she died. 55-year difference. Then Israel saw Joseph's sons and said, "Who are these?" What a funny question. Who are these? Funny question until we realize Joseph is practically blind. Who are these? I put, what a funny question. Jacob is 147 now and has spent much time with Joseph and his family. Remember, the boys were raised in his house, it said, teaching them the ways of Yehovah and to know his Torah. Yet he says, who are these? I think perhaps it is because he cannot see clearly. He sees somebody's there and he's really asking, who's with you? That's what it appears like to me. Joseph said to his father, "They are my sons, whom Elohim has given me in this place." Like he doesn't know that. And he said, "Please bring them to me and I will bless them." Joseph's thinking, all right, Barak. That's the word right there. I will bless them is literally what it's saying. It's the same word that we use for bowing, but now we're going to see the blessing because it's being used differently. Now the eyes of Israel were dim. There it is right there. With age, so that he could not see. Then Joseph brought them near him, and he kissed them and embraced them. And Israel said to Joseph, I had not thought to see your face, but in fact, Elohim has shown me your offspring. Oh, isn't that amazing? He not only got to see Joseph's face again, but he got to see the fruit of Joseph's loins, his sons, his offspring. So Joseph brought them from beside his knees, and he bowed down with his face to the earth. Jacob is sitting on the bed. Joseph is bringing the boys, 22 years old, into Jacob's reach. Look at what's going to happen. And Joseph took them both, Ephraim with his right hand toward Israel's left hand. So he's walking up to his dad, and he's putting Ephraim on his right hand, so as he faces his dad, he's going to be on his dad's left hand. And Manasseh he's doing with his left hand, putting him on Israel's right hand. Again, it's talking about Israel's right hand, not Jacob's right hand. Then Israel stretched out his right hand and laid it on Ephraim's head, crossed it over, who was the younger, and his left hand on Manasseh's head, guiding his hands knowingly. For Manasseh was the firstborn. The Bakar was Manasseh. Now the sons of Reuben, the firstborn of Israel, he was indeed the firstborn. But because this is Chronicles 5:1-2, but because he defiled his father's bed, it says his birthright was given to the sons of Joseph. There it is right there. It's in Torah. The son of Israel. So the genealogy is not listed according to the birthright, yet Judah prevailed over his brothers, and from him came a ruler, although the birthright was Joseph's. Hear that? Normally, the one who gets the birthright is going to be the one who's going to rule over the brothers. But that wasn't the case here. He says in verse 15, and he blessed Joseph and said, the Elohim before whom my father Abraham and Isaac walked, the Elohim who fed me all my life long to this day, fed me, the Elohim who fed me all my life long to this day. Let me see, this says that it says El Shaddai who fed me. Just check that. Ra'ah, graze, pasture, fed me. There's no El Shaddai in here. Where did I get El Shaddai? I'm going to ditch that. I don't see it. The Elohim who fed me. We're talking about, I guess maybe what I'm doing is I'm picking up, this is fed. Fed. Shad. Remember we were talking about shad? Provision from a strong authority. Shad being the two that dangle. This is about provision that Yehovah is going to bring. And he's saying that he was fed by Elohim all the days of his life. Maybe that's where I was going with that. The Elohim who fed me all my life long to this day. It says, the messenger who redeemed me from all evil. Bless the lads. Let my name be named upon them. He's still talking to Joseph. The messenger who has redeemed me from all evil. Bless the lads. Let my name, the name of Israel, be named upon them, and the name of my fathers Abraham and Isaac, and let them grow into a multitude in the midst of the earth. Now, when Joseph saw that his father laid his right hand on the head of Ephraim, it displeased him. So he took hold of his father's hand to remove it from Ephraim's head to Manasseh's head. And Joseph said to his father, not so, my father, for this one is the firstborn. Put your right hand on his head. You know what? Again, it was always Manasseh who did these miraculous feats of strength. Even, how do you say it? He laid his hand on Jacob's shoulder and calmed him. That's not strength, but that's nonetheless a miraculous feat for a man who's getting ready to tear apart Egypt. I put Manasseh seems to be the son that is outstanding in Joseph's mind. It was Manasseh at 4 or 5 years old who subdued Simeon. First time Jacob's seed came to Egypt. It was Manasseh 5 or 6 years old who did what Judah did in crushing the very large stone when Jacob's seed were getting ready to destroy Egypt. It was Manasseh at 5 or 6 years old who put his hand on Judah's shoulder to calm him. Now Ephraim, the second born, once again gets the blessing over his older brother. What's that all about? And Joseph said to his father, not so, my father. I guess I read that. Put your right hand on his head. But his father refused and said, I know, my son, I know. He also shall become a people, and he also shall be great. But truly his younger brother shall be greater than he, and his seed shall become a multitude of nations. Multitude of nations. Always you have to look at that particular. His seed. Oh, it says, and from his seed shall become the people's fullness. From his seed shall become the people's fullness, or a fruitfulness. Shall come a fruitfulness, is what we're talking about from this words. Well, look at all the times that the second born has gotten the blessing. May Elohim make you as Ephraim and as Manasseh. It's the reverse order. The younger replaced the firstborn as the spiritual man replaces the carnal man. I think this is what we're talking about. It's kind of a shadow picture that Yehovah seems to constantly be doing for us. Abel replaced Cain. Remember, Cain was the eldest, but Yehovah approved of Abel. Isaac replaced Ishmael as the firstborn. Jacob replaced Esau as the firstborn. Two nations, two peoples are within your womb, and the older shall serve the younger, was the word that Rebekah received from Shem and Eber and Abraham. Joseph replaced Reuben. Remember, Reuben's the oldest, but Joseph received the blessing, which usually goes to the firstborn, and the birthright. Joseph's sons each received an equal portion, with Jacob's other sons giving Joseph a double portion. So if each of his two sons gets a portion, he's getting a double portion, isn't he? Now, Ephraim is replacing Manasseh. Later, we're going to see Kohath replace Gershom. He's the eldest son. No wonder he's feeling bad about it. But Yehovah chose the Kohathites, and specifically Aaron's seed, to be the priests. Kohath didn't like it. So he blessed them that day, saying, by you Israel will bless, saying, may Elohim make you as Ephraim and as Manasseh. And thus he set Ephraim before Manasseh. Then Israel, again we're talking about Israel, we're not talking about Jacob. Then Israel said to Joseph, behold, I'm dying, but Elohim will be with you. You, this is y'all, not you, not with thee, with y'all, all Israel, and bring y'all back to the land of your fathers. Moreover, I have given to you one portion above your brothers, which I took from the hands of the Amorites with my sword and my bow. He's going to give to who? You? I don't know if that was thou. It must be thou. One portion above thy brothers. It's got to be thy brothers, thou and thy. Which I took from the hand. When did he take from an Amorite anything? By sword or by bow? Do you remember? Not in Torah, but it is in Yasher. Look what it says in Yasher. Joseph received a double portion, which usually goes to the firstborn. There's no record of Jacob fighting with bow in Genesis, but there is in Yasher. Here it is, Yasher 37:4. And all the kings of the Canaanites and Amorites, remember an Amorite is a Canaanite, that surrounded the city of Shechem heard that Jacob's seed had again come to Shechem and dwelt there. Oh no, they're going to do it to us again. And Ahari, king of Shiloh, came to assist Elon, and he approached Jacob. When Jacob drew his bow that was in his hand, with an arrow struck Ahari, which caused his death. Well, during the 7-day battle, it's Jacob who is going to kill every one of the 7 kings of the Amorites with his bow. Never did it with a sword that I saw, but maybe he did. Well, here, maybe this is what he's going to share with his brothers, one portion above them. And these kings then urged Jacob's seed and begged them to return all the spoil they had captured from the 7 cities of the Amorites. Remember, they had gotten gobs of spoil. There was a mountain of spoil that they were on. And Jacob's seed did so, and they returned all that they had captured. The women, the little ones, the cattle, and the spoil. What did we say? The booty. The booty. The booty and the spoil. The booty was the flesh, the women, the little ones that they kept for servants, and the cattle. And then the spoil which they had taken. They sent them off, and they went away to each city. And all the kings again bowed down to Jacob's seed, and they sent and brought them many gifts. In these days, I think these are the gifts that he's giving a portion above his brothers. And Jacob's seed sent off these kings and their men, and they went peaceably. We don't need to read the rest of that. You get the idea. Well, that finishes chapter 48. We've made it through 2 chapters already. Let's see if we can't get through this last chapter. 49. And Jacob called his sons and said, gather together, that I may tell you what shall befall you in the last days. What shall befall you, what you shall encounter in the last, the Akarath, the last, the end, the future, the last days. Yomim probably is the word that they're probably using there. Yomim, yes. Ha-Yomim, the days to come, probably. This is Kara. Where was the word that they were using? Kara. Befall. Kara, encounter. Call, meet. Also a chance encounter. In days. What is the number on that one? 319. Here's 319. In the latter time, as coming after everything else. This is Ancient Hebrew Lexicon of the Bible. Both of these are Ancient Hebrew Lexicon of the Bible. He says, Jacob's seed, verse 2 says, Jacob's seeds gathered together and heard and hearkened unto Israel their father. Jacob's seed gathered together and heard and hearkened unto Israel their father. Well, now he's going to speak to each of his sons. Some good, some not so good. Here's Reuben. He says, you are my Bekor, my firstborn Bakari, my might and the beginning of my strength, the excellency of dignity and the excellency of power. Sounds like it's going pretty good for him right now, doesn't it? Yet he says, unstable as water, you shall not excel, because you went up to your father's bed, then you defiled it. He went up to my couch. Look what it says in Yasher. Oh, this has some really interesting things as it relates to the last chapter that we were just talking about in the blessing of Ephraim and Manasseh. Here's Yasher 36:14. And Reuben was jealous for his mother Leah on account of this. Remember, after Rachel died, after Leah died, after Rachel died, Jacob moved his tent near to Bilhah, who was Rachel's handmaid and his concubine. And Reuben was jealous for his mother Leah. He probably felt he should have moved his tent near Leah's tent on account of this. And he was filled with anger and rose up in anger and went and entered the tent of Bilhah. And he thence removed his father's bed. Was he thinking that if he laid with Bilhah, his father could no longer lay with Bilhah, perhaps? And at that time, the portion of the birthright, hear that? At that time, the portion of the birthright, together with the kingly and the priestly offices, they were all together. It was kind of the Melchizedek blessing. The birthright, the kingly, and the priestly offices were removed from the sons of Reuben. The seed of Reuben, the firstborn, was to have it, for he had profaned his father's bed, and the birthright was given to Joseph. Look at this is back when Jacob was 100 years old. Joseph was supposed to have the birthright. But look what happened. The kingly office to Judah. Remember, he said, you will rule over your brothers. And the priesthood to Levi. Isn't it interesting that he would give it to Levi? This was just after, we're talking 6 months after Shechem was destroyed by Levi and his brother Simeon. Who are the next two that we're going to talk about? But he gave the priesthood to Levi because Reuben had defiled his father's bed. Oh, it's so interesting to see how this is all working out in the future now as we're coming into it. And Simeon and Levi are brothers. Instruments of cruelty are in their dwelling place. Let not my soul enter their counsel. Let not my honor be united to their assembly. For in their anger they slew a man, and in their self-will they hamstrung an ox. It says they slew a man. They slew lots of men, didn't they? Cursed be their anger, for it is fierce, and their wrath, for it is cruel. I will divide them in Jacob and scatter them in Israel. Simeon and Levi were to be scattered in Israel. Now he talks to Judah. Judah, you are he whom your brothers shall praise. Your hand shall be on the neck of your enemies. Your father's sons shall bow down before you. Judah is a lion's whelp. From the prey, my son, you have gone up. He bows down, he lies down as a lion, and as a lion, who shall rouse him? The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor a lawgiver from between his feet until Shiloh comes. And to him shall be the obedience of the people. To him shall be the obedience of the people. The peoples. Let me look at peoples real quick. Amim, the peoples. Until Shiloh comes, a scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor a lawgiver from between his feet until Shiloh comes. And to him shall be the obedience of the people. Until Shiloh comes. What is this Shiloh that we're talking about? You know, they capitalize Shiloh. They want to make it all about Yeshua, I'm sure. But I think there's something more going on here. Maybe this is my translation of this. The scepter turneth not aside from Judah, and a lawgiver from between his feet, until his seed comes. His seed comes. And to him shall be a gathering or obedience of peoples. There was other people who translated this word Shiloh as seed. A masculine noun, proper name. Unfortunately, because it's a proper name, Ancient Hebrew lexicon of the Bible doesn't even address it. A noun meaning who it is, or who it is, or whose it is. Only used in this particular verse right here. There are other places where they use Shiloh, but it's talking about the Shiloh that we were at when we came to cross the River Jordan and came into Israel for the very first time. That's where we set up the Ark of the Covenant, was in Shiloh. Shiloh was later destroyed, wiped out. Torah really doesn't even give us a reason why it was wiped out. It just simply was wiped out. I will do to you as I did to Shiloh, he says several times. Well, let's continue. Binding his donkey to the vine, and his donkey's colt to a choice vine, he washed his garments in wine, and his clothes in the blood of grapes. Remember, we're talking about what will become of you in the last days. Judah. Who came out of Judah's seeds? David. The one who led Israel, one of two kings who led Israel. I'm thinking about David and Solomon. I guess Saul, you could say, led Israel, but not well. David was probably the best. Saul was the next, but it was Saul who gave us, what did we say, honey? Rehoboam? Who ended up dividing the kingdom and creating all kinds of problems, because Yehovah took it from Solomon's hands. He says, I won't take it from you, but I'm going to take it from your sons. I'm going to divide the kingdom. Said 11 portions here, or no, 10 portions here, 1 portion here. We couldn't figure out how come there's 10 plus 1. That's only terrible. That's only 11 portions, isn't it? So it's, again, there's challenges, things that we got to deal with. But this blood of the grapes, here, let's take a look at this blood of the grapes. Here's a verse that I found. Who is this who comes from Edom with dyed garments from Basra? This one who is glorious in his apparel, traveling in the greatness of his strength. I who speak in righteousness, mighty to save. Why is your apparel red? And your garments like one who treads on the winepress. This is what we were just talking about with him. I have trodden the winepress alone, and from the peoples no one was with me. I have trodden them in my anger and trampled them in my fury. Their blood is sprinkled upon my garments, and I have stained all my robes. For the day of vengeance is in my heart. The year of my redeemed has come. The year of my redeemed has come. Who is he talking about? I have trodden the winepress. I think he's talking about seed, spiritual seed this time, of David. Remember, I've often said that David is a shadow picture of Yehovah's servants that are going to come in the last day. David is like them. Saul is like what many of us would call the Antichrist. I would call him the servant of Yehovah, but used in a different way to bring discipline to the earth. Well, let's go back to our blessings and curses here. Our blessings, if these are blessings, not all of them are blessings, are they? A scepter turneth not aside from Judah, and a lawgiver from between his feet until U-N-T-I-L-L, is that right? U-N, no, I'm missing the N. Until his seed comes, and to him shall be the gathering or obedience of the peoples. The gathering of the peoples reminds me of the two sticks that are coming in the last days. Ephraim is being joined to Judah and the sons of Israel. Could this be what we're talking about? That Judah and the sons of Israel is what we're talking about? Judah as the lawgiver and his seed? I think it is. Binding his donkey to his vine, I read that one. His eyes are dark with wine. His teeth are whiter than milk. Moving on to Zebulun. Shall dwell by the haven of the sea. He shall become a haven for ships and his border shall adjoin Sidon. What is this? This is dwell by the sea. Cover, shelter, dwell. I guess that's the dwell part. Yeah, it is, the dwell part. For a shelter. See, Zebulun shall dwell, and he shall be a shelter for ships. Oniyah, a ship. Ships, it's plural. And his border shall be upon Sidon, ship, searching the sea for distant shores. Could this be a metaphor? Could this be a metaphorical sea? And he, Zebulun, are shelter for men who come to them from the kingdoms of the world. Ooh, is that possible? Could there be men that Yehovah is preparing right now who will bring other men to them, provide for them in these last days? I wonder, could this be a metaphorical sea? Remember, the sea is the peoples of this world. Zebulun is a shelter for men who come to them from the kingdoms of the world. They're leaving this kingdom of the world, but it's hard to live outside of the kingdom of the world. Remember, Sidon, it says Sidon, and his border shall adjoin Sidon. Sidon was never one of our borders. Sidon, remember, Sidon is I believe he's an Amorite. I'm sure he's an Amorite or Canaanite. Let's take a quick look. Canaan. Sons of Canaan. Yeah, look at firstborn. Sidon. Sidon is firstborn. He's son of Canaan. Thought he was. Yeah, just some things. You know, this is very difficult stuff to go through because there's so much gray area here. We've got to see through eyes differently than we would normally see. That was Zebulun. Here's Issachar. Issachar is a strong donkey, lying between two burdens. Lying between two burdens. He saw the rest was good, and that the land was pleasant. He bowed his shoulder to bear a burden, and became a band of servants. Servants, aved. Aved, work, servants, is the word that's being used here. Of Dan, he says, Dan shall judge his people as one of the tribes of Israel. Dan shall be a serpent by the way, a viper by the path, that bites the horse's heels, so that its rider shall fall backwards. I have waited for your salvation, O Yehovah. Of Gad says, a troop shall tramp upon him, but he shall triumph at last. Bread from Yasher. As I recall, Yasher meant bread. Yasher's bread shall be rich. So he humbled you also. So he humbled you, allowed you to hunger, and fed you manna, which you did not know, nor did your fathers know. And that he might make you know that man shall not live by bread alone, but man shall live by every word that proceeds from the mouth of Yehovah. Asher's bread shall be rich. Asher's bread. He says bread from Yasher. It's Asher's bread shall be rich, and he shall yield dainties. Is Asher's bread a spiritual bread? I wonder. yield royal dainties. Shaman. What is this? Fat, robust. I don't know why I have this in here. Not sure what word it was used with. Let's take a quick look. We'll find greasy. We're looking for Shem and Noah. Shem and Noah. Here it is right here. Fat. Rich. Okay, that's the word rich. His bread shall be rich. His bread shall be fat. That's where we're looking for that. Shaman. Shaman. I wonder if that's the same word that the Indian name shaman comes from. Pronounced the same way. His Yasher's bread shall be shaman, and he shall yield royal dainties. Well, again, we shall see. Naphtali. Naphtali is a deer let loose. He uses beautiful words. Naphtali, a deer. Remember, Naphtali is the one that ran so fast. Now he speaks of Joseph. Joseph is a fruitful bough. A fruitful bough by a well. His branches run over the wall. The archers have bitterly grieved him, shot him, and hated him. But his bow remained in strength, and the arms of his hands were made strong by the hands of Jacob's mighty one. He says, from there the shepherd builds Israel. From there the shepherd builds Israel. Here's the shepherd. They translate it as the shepherd. From here, the shepherd. I guess I put the shepherd too. From there, shepherds. Shepherd. Ah, geez, how do you do this? If it's not there, from there, shepherd builds Israel. There is no definite article here. Oh, it's translated so many different ways. It's really tough to really dig to any of the truth of this. By the Elohim of your father who will help you, and by the... They want to make this Almighty. It's Shaddai. The word is Shaddai. Remember, Shaddai has to do with my breast, in a sense, my provision. When we talk about El Shaddai, it's the provision of the El. But there is no noun, proper noun, before this word in this case. So it's more saying my provision, or simply provide. Ancient Hebrew lexicon says this particular word is breast. Breast. Again, what do we get from the breast? We get nourishment. From El of thy father, from El of thy father will help thee and provide, and bless thee with heavenly blessings from above, with blessings in the sea. Now we're talking about blessings from above, and then blessings in the sea. Blessings in the deep that reclines under the heavens. The deep reclines under the heavens with blessings of breasts. Here we're using that same word, but now we're using it in the plural because a woman has two. And womb. This is provision from Yehovah. The blessing of your father have excelled. The blessings of your father have excelled the blessings of my ancestors. The blessings of your father. Isn't that a funny way of saying it? The blessings of your father. Who's your father? The guy who's saying it, Jacob. My blessings have excelled the blessings of my ancestors, up to the utmost bound of the everlasting hills. They shall be on the head of Joseph, and on the crown of the head of him who was separate from his brothers. Joseph was separate from his brothers. Lastly is Benjamin. Benjamin is a ravenous wolf. In the morning he shall devour the prey, and at night he shall divide the spoil. Sounds like he's a man of war, doesn't it? All these are the 12 tribes of Israel, and this is what their father spoke to them. He blessed them, and he blessed each one according to his own blessing. And he charged them and said to them, I am to be gathered to my people. Bury me with my fathers in the cave that is in the field of Ephron, the Hittite, in the cave that is in the field of Machpelah, which is before Mamre, in the land of Canaan. He wants to make sure they understand exactly where he's supposed to be buried, which Abraham bought from the field of Ephron the Hittite. Oh, that's just so hard to read. Which Abraham bought with the field from Ephron the Hittite, is how we want to read that. Which Abraham bought from the field, or with the field, from Ephron the Hittite, as a possession for a burial place. There they buried Abraham and Sarah, his woman. There they buried Isaac and Rebekah, his woman. And there I buried Leah. Do you know the place that I'm talking about, boys? The field and the cave that is there were purchased from Heth's seed. And when Jacob had finished commanding his sons, he drew his feet up into the bed, breathed his last, and was gathered to his people. Oh, I'm going to miss Jacob. I love Jacob so much. A man after Yehovah's own heart. Well, next week, Jacob is going to be buried. Oh my goodness. Wait until you see the burial of Jacob. The entombment, the procession. There's a procession that they're going to make as they go from Egypt all the way up to Canaan. Many days will people mourn, not only the Egyptians, not only the Canaanites, I should say, not only his sons and his sons' sons and their families, but also the Egyptians. The Canaanites are going to grieve for Jacob. He was their friend. Well, we're going to see it next week. Hey, thank you for joining me. We'll see you again next time. Love you tons. Bye now.